Hi Scott, thank you for sending through your follow the nose exercise and for the question. I can see quite clearly where I would have done something different from you and how what I did could have been easily misinterpreted. So if we look at these heads in the top line first, so I'm just going to name them, make sure that I am in the right layer and using the right color. So here's number 1, 2, we're going to go with 3 and 4 here. So now with number 1 and 2, where I've put the nose sticking out of the edge of the face, and then lined up the eyes like this on each side of the nose, you pretty much followed that logic for numbers 3 and 4. Slightly off, as you say, wherever the tip of the nose is pointing, you didn't always get that perfectly accurate. But you certainly went for the thing of the nose is in profile. So if you see the nose like this, take it that it's in profile and have the eyes like this, kind of on a line each side of the nose. So that is absolutely understandable, and I can totally see why you would interpret it like that. The only reason that I did anything different was I did these ones and then thought, okay, what I want to do is come up with as many variations of, rather than the head just looking, say, left or right like this, I wanted to think about the head tipping forward and looking down, or tipping back, tipping up from the chin and looking upwards. And so that is what I started doing here. And that is really the only reason that I went with this. And of course, this is more like a bird's eye view of the person. We're looking at the bridge of his nose rather than looking at it in profile. And then his neck and chin and stuff would be kind of tucked in underneath there, and we wouldn't really even see them. Similarly with this one, again, if this was it's a bird's eye view. If this guy was bald, we'd be looking down on that kind of landing patch on the top of his bald head. So you did 100% right. You interpreted things as the nose being in profile, and that is a very logical thing to do. The other thing that's good about what you did is that having the nose in profile is a very dynamic way to look at something. So a perfect profile is rather dull if we look at it like this. So if you're just looking at the side like this, and you can see half of everything, you can see one eye, you can see this side of the nose, you can see half of the smile. And if we go in and kind of follow it to a logical conclusion, we'd have an ear somewhere there. That is quite a static and visually dull way to portray someone, but it is a perfect profile. The sort of opposite of that is the perfect face-on. If we do it like this and have an eye, and the nose kind of, we can do it like this. And that is, in its way, equally dull because it's got no angles to it. It's just absolutely face-on. I'm going to put the neck in too, just to get us complete. So again, fairly dull, but easy to understand and interpret. So between the perfect profile and the absolute face-on, you have a whole realm of the head being partially turned, and those are the more dynamic angles that you want to work with. And so if you think of a globe like this, where you've got the equator, let's put the equator like this, and the equator is what we use as the eye line, and then round the globe you have the various angles of longitude like this, lines of longitude, not really angles, I guess. Wherever there's an angle of longitude, your head can be turned. So if you put the nose there, that's almost a perfect profile. The closer you put it to the middle, the closer we are to face on. But having the nose pointing to left or right is always more interesting than having it pointing to the front. Okay, so you can start playing around with that. And then, of course, one gets the possibility of the head being angled like this. Okay, so let's imagine we've got a neck like this, and a person like this, and like this. If we point the nose up like this, You see, that's now becoming a bit more interesting because you've got an ear here. So the ear always sits on this eye line as well. I tend to position the top tip of the ear on the eye line and then the eyes also along it. And then this nose is pointing upwards, so he's looking up. We've got a whole load of chin below here. And then we don't see quite as much of the top of his head because we're looking up at him like that. And he could have a collar or something like this. And that would be a head. If we were to do it in the opposite way, well, not the opposite way, looking down rather, so we could do this and say, okay, now he's looking downwards. Let's have his nose pointing there, eyes like that, ear like that, neck like this. Then we've got his mouth closer to the bottom of his face because his chin is tucked in onto his chest, and you end up with that. So you can see if you start playing around with this globe line, the equator line, you can start to get the nose pointing up or pointing down and getting a sense of the head being tipped back with the chin up or tipped forward with the chin down. Okay, so I hope that doesn't add too much confusion. I hope it just expands on what we're doing and gives you a little bit of extra understanding. Thanks again for the question.